Dittmar. Jesse and I talk about a couple of things. We talk about assisting in New York City and what it takes to become a successful assistant. We also talk about the challenges with shooting in a socially distanced age in a city like New York City. All that is coming your way next. This is Twitter. All right, Jesse, welcome to the show, man. How's it going?
Hey, Frederick. Thanks for having me, man. Really excited.
I'm excited too. You're looking at your website as we were talking before I started recording. We were talking a little bit about stuff, and I brought your website up on the screen. Your work is fantastic, man. I've got lots of questions. I know we're going to target this. We're going to talk a little bit about the social distance photography and all that, but I want to go off the rails and talk about your work as well, because it's kind of cool. Yeah,
it's all the man. I'm here to answer your questions.
I love it. So give us the Jesse Dittmar sort of the origin story. You know, what brought you into this crazy world of photography, and what's the gravity that keeps you in orbit around it?
Wow, loaded question, right? That's a long. Yeah. I don't know how much time do we have.
We got about 3 years, so keep it short.
Yeah, exactly. I remember going. I've always been into art and music, and I remember going to Barnes and Noble, going to the art book section of the photography section, just like pulling open some of these books by Annie Leibovitz, Avedon, Irving Penn, Nigel Perry. In the beginning was he has some great photo books, and just being enamored with all of the faces and just the idea that I had a book in front of me that I knew was of people who were famous, and I had no idea how it was compiled by one person or for what purpose. And I just thought the images were so interesting. And I had just been gravitating towards photography at that time in my life, my early teens. And I just it was the aha moment where the rest of my life has been figuring that out, figuring out how do I do this thing? And that was really the springboard, and it's all been one kind of pretty much straight path since then to here. I ended up working for a lot of those people, for Annie Leibovitz and some of the best photographers in the world as their assistants. And wow. That's how I learned the how. And every step along the way, man, from college into interning, into assisting, into shooting, and the struggle between assisting and shooting. And in the beginning of my career, it's all just been a reinforcement of this is something that I love to do. So that's kind of the origin story. And now I'm here. It's been about 6 years since I started being a full-time freelance photographer, and I'm still loving it. You know, I get to meet the coolest people, and I get to photograph people that are really accomplished and really are changing the world in highly influential ways, and the ability to stand in front of them and have a couple minutes of their time and really kind of be able to put that experience and transform it into art is exactly why I do it.
I love that, man. What a great answer. And you hit it right on the head. You know, a lot of people say that the one of the benefits of being a photographer is the camera in a lot of ways acts as your passport into situations that you ordinarily wouldn't have any access into, or access to people, you know, at the same time, yeah. You know, which is really cool. There's a million things to talk to you about, so I'm going to try to keep it focused. But you mentioned Annie Leibovitz. You know, we hear sure. her name all the time, you know, mostly sure. in the context
rightfully so.
Yeah, mostly in the context of accomplished photographer, kind of the gold standard for, you know, if you can get up to the Annie Leibovitz level, you know, now you're a real photographer.
Well, who has? Besides her?
Yeah, you're a rock star at that point. So how is it? How is it working for somebody with that much talent? That, you know, what does a day in the life look like for an assistant that's assisting for someone like Annie?
Well, there's different levels, right, of the assistant tree for someone like Annie. She has her full-time people who are on salary, who are there day in and day out. And then she has any number level of freelance assistants that are coming in on a needed basis, and all the way down through interns who are also there for a short period of time, but day in and day out. And so it depends on where you are in that tree. I was a freelance assistant. I got to kind of just come in and come out of a couple shoots. And, you know, for me, it was I mean, it was a fantastic experience. I think that I was the best photo assistant I was going to be by the time I got to work with Annie, which was very good for me because I was one of 6 assistants on set, and I was the fourth or third on the hierarchy. So I was getting asked to do stuff that was not super complicated, like setting up stands, like setting up lights, things that were very easy to me because I had done them thousands of times before. So I was able to do that job very well without putting a ton of my brain power into it per se. So I was able to, at the time, really kind of visualize and take in everything else that was happening on set. And that was awesome for me. So I really enjoyed my experience. I think it's different. It's different. I've been a first assistant as well to photographers, not to Annie. And that's a different set of experiences because there's so much more weight on your shoulders and so much more responsibility on your shoulders you're part of the team on a day in and day out basis. And you learn a ton doing that too. I mean, if I ever was going to become the first assistant for Annie Leibovitz, I probably would still be there now. I wouldn't be here. So I would have a different path. So I'm really happy with what I ended up doing there. And I ended up learning so much. I learned what it takes to have the quality of output that she has and the quantity of output that she has, which is unrivaled in our industry. I mean, people have their qualms about her work. Some people love it. Some people dislike it. I consistently say no one else in the world is putting out the cover of Vogue, the cover of Vanity Fair, and a Nike campaign all in a 3-week period. It just is, she's the only person that can do it because of the infrastructure that she's built. And that was the biggest thing I walked away with. When I stopped assisting for Annie, I said to myself right then and there, I'm not Annie Leibovitz right now, but I'm gonna make my operation move as if I were. And it might be only a tenth of the size, but I'm going to operate using the same structures and the same kind of infrastructure so that when I grow, I'll grow organically and be ready to take on bigger and bigger projects without being overwhelmed.
Of course. Yeah. That's the part of the idea of being an apprentice for someone is, one day you will go out on your own and take the learnings from that situation and apply them with your spin on it to your own thing. And that's, it was perfect. Awesome. So before we dive into socially distanced photography and how you're approaching the new world, or at least the new tangent on the old world, I want to talk a little bit about the work, that you're putting out. And I've got your website on the screen here as we talk through it.
There she is.
Fantastic. Look at this. Okay, so you mentioned that you're sort of, using Annie as a template and then, working through that, at least on the infrastructure side, not so much the photography side. But what does a day in the life of Jesse Dittmar look like, looking at these shots? What's a day in the life of one of these shoots?
Well, a day in the life of one of these shoots and a day in the life of Jesse Dittmar are definitely two different things. We're shooting, we're shooting a significant portion of the year. I would say that about 70 to 100 days a year I'm on set. So, I mean, that's, it's not every day that I'm on set. So when I am on set, though, it's an intense day. A lot of preparation goes into these shoots, a lot of research, a lot of pre-production, a lot of planning. And then the day is all about execution. It depends on the shoot. It can be anywhere between me going to somewhere by myself or traveling the world by myself, like down here for my nonprofit work, all the way up to big crews of 30 people, which I don't expect to happen anytime soon, obviously, with what's going on. So, every shoot's a bit different, but for me, it's all about, I think the constant through line with these shoots is planning, preparation, being ready for curveballs and kind of mapping out in your head what may or may not happen, having ideas in your head of what you want to do, and then going and executing. And that's, coming to my studio, which you see behind me, getting all the gear that we need from here, getting any rental equipment that we may need, going to a studio or a house or a office space or a public space, setting everything up, testing, until we feel like it's good. And then having our subject come on set for a very brief period of time, probably an average of 20 minutes, and getting a really connected, organic portrait of a person that's a fleeting moment that I'm trying to make feel more substantial. And then breaking it all down, coming back and doing it again, and trying to execute on a similar level of, of hits that Annie does.
I love that. Okay. So on the execution side, and sort of like I foreshadowed a little bit with the sort of changes in the world, you're in Brooklyn, New York right now, right? Yeah. So you're ground zero for a lot of stuff, ground zero for pandemic, ground zero for Black Lives Matter, protesting. Yeah, I'm sure you could look out of your window and see some of this stuff. What does the world look like now for Jesse Dittmar, looking at what you were shooting or what you continue to shoot, and then overlaying the new reality, if we want to use that phrase, onto that? How have things changed for you?
I mean, right now, obviously the volume of shoots is just, dropped off a cliff as far as, I only had a couple of shoot days in the last 3 months. And so that's not unexpected. So as far as right now, my day to day is much more business related, office related, getting projects done that I'd never done before that have always fallen through the cracks. But I think you're speaking a little bit more about towards what's in the immediate future and how shoots are going to be, how I'm going to execute shoots going forward. And it's going to be interesting. It's going to be weird. Like a lot of the things we took for granted as far as Uber rides and, a big lift and getting around the city with with thousands of pounds of gear was its own challenge that I had 10 years of experience doing. I haven't gotten in a lift with all of my equipment since COVID. I don't know what that's going to look like as far as, their comfortable, the driver's comfort level with us packing their car full of stuff. I think it's going to be more challenging. So I think that kind of mentality is probably going to go on down the line as far as things taking more time, needing more time to prepare for the inevitable slowness of moving through the world now. Everything is slowed down considerably, and I suspect it will stay like that for a while. So getting more time, having more time, being able to do the same amount of creative output as I had before, but with less people, is super key. Really calling upon my skill sets that I had utilized before as a very young photographer and even a student, of where I did not have big crews of people who were highly specialized helping me out. We're going to be asking ourselves before every shoot, who is essential to this shoot? What can we live without and still accomplish what we want to accomplish? And those are going to be the big questions. And I think you're going to see crews, including my own, substantially shrink. And I'm, like I just did on my most recent shoot with Charlie D'Amelio, taking on most of the creative burden, as opposed to before, where I was trying to relieve myself of a lot of creative burden as far as styling and clothing and hair and makeup and photo assisting things like, dealing with the equipment, lighting, things that I had my hands in overall from like more of a managerial perspective. But now we'll have to go back to, like I used to before, doing rather than managing, which I think is going to be the big change.
Does it look like from, is that change driven by the necessity of being, appropriately socially distanced and reducing the amount of breaths that are around you? Or is it because it's hard to get people to assist now because they're afraid to be close to other people because they're, obeying quarantine rules, et cetera?
I think it probably depends on a person by person basis on whether it'll be difficult to get assistance. I don't think it will be. I think people will be wanting to work. The biggest thing will be the subjects and the clients and the brands that I'm working with. They're going to want to reduce their liability. If you tell a subject, hey, we got this photographer coming to your house, he or she makes pictures like X, it takes 15 people, they'll be like, can you just send the person? They're gonna be less likely to do a photo shoot the bigger the size of the crew, in my opinion. And so I think you're going to find brands and publications and all the kinds of people that I work for and work with, before they even ask a photographer, they're going to be thinking, how many people is this guy or girl, woman going to need to get the job done? And I think they're going to just be gravitating towards photographers that, like myself, have shown that we can do it with a smaller crew and smaller production.
Yeah. I wonder, is that the future? Is the future, and how will that future affect photography? And the quality of the final work product. Will it be negatively impacted or positively impacted? Because they say constraint makes you a better artist, right? When you only have five colors in your crayon box, you get to work, versus thousands, and you get analysis paralysis.
I believe that.
Yeah, you think that applies to photography? Or, conversely, the other side of that coin is now Jesse Dittmar has to do all his work himself, and he's the stylist, and he's this and that. He can't possibly focus as intently on the creative work as he did before, because he's now an octopus doing all this stuff versus a shark going after one thing. What do you think of that? What's your take on that?
I think that like from a much like a macro perspective, kind of like industry trend perspective, you're going to see work that feels less produced, and that's already been kind of happening, in my opinion. I think that you can make, listen, some of the most iconic pictures of all time have just been a person with a person with a camera. It hasn't been all of the things that we're talking about. So I think it's not at all an obligation to have all these people with you in order to make a good picture. What I think that we're used to as an industry is that things look a certain way, and in order to make work look a certain way, you need personnel, you need certain equipment, you need certain factors in order to get a desired look and a desired style. I think that style will be less sought after, and I still think great images will be made, and I think it'll be cyclical. I think it will come back eventually. Even a shoot like this, I would say is a medium-sized crew.
For the shoot that we're looking at on screen right now?
For the shoot that we're looking at right now, I photographed all these images earlier this year. It feels like a lifetime ago, for the Fox Broadcasting Network. It's all the talent for their 2020 lineup this year. And, I would say this shoot is probably towards the maximum end of the size of productions and crews you'll see. And even that's only my own. I don't know if they'll do this shoot next year because of just how many people were involved in getting everyone here, and just kind of how many people there were at the venue. So, we may not see a shoot exactly like this happen for a little while, but I think we'll see maybe individual one-off portraits like this certainly happen, because I can go do a picture like this of a single person with not that many people to come help me.
Yeah, I can imagine that from a risk standpoint, and considering the budgets for these shows, having all of these actors in one spot and exposed to the same crew, worst case scenario could end badly for that season, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm speaking more about the level of production here. This is a pretty, I would say, medium level of production. It's certainly not small. We're talking about being able to see full head to toe figures, full body shots, sometimes of multiple people. I think that's, takes a certain level of production that it's a lot, it's a lot of gear. It's not nothing. You can see it in a shot coming up. Like, that's brought in set flooring. That is a big 10-foot backdrop and a bunch of production cubes and props. And, I think that it from a pure production standpoint, not even referencing how many people are coming through the door in this scenario, you're kind of in the medium zone of what might be happening in the future.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm just gawking at all these images and these folks that you shot, and you're like, wow, that's just it's even this one shoot
all in one day.
In one day you did all these shots, all these people. Where you have like a celebrity lineup outside? I was
tired, Frederick. I was tired at the end of the day.
I can't imagine.
At the end of the shoot, I went to the bar to have dinner and have a glass of wine by myself. And then a couple of the people that I photographed came up to me and started talking to me. And I was like, I'm so freaking tired. I thought my day was over, and it had kind of only just begun. I ended up hanging out with a couple of those people, and that was fun. But I was dead tired. That was a long one.
But that's why they hire you, right? Because you do a job like this, and clearly the end result is top notch and reliable, and you burned the midnight oil and lost a couple of brain cells, but you got it done on time, and I would assume under budget. So that means more work from them is going to come your way, right? That's the game, right?
Everyone was super happy with that shoot, and I think the hardest thing about doing a photo booth shoot like that is consistent and engaging images throughout the whole set. I think we photographed 60 actors or something. And the way I work is very conversational. It's very I'm trying to engage with them. I'm trying to get that mood across where you can see in the image the engagement and the connection I'm having with the subject. And it's like speed dating. So it's like doing that over and over and over again all day long. It is exhausting.
How do you do that though? How do you keep up the genuineness of the questions? Because I know if it were me and I had to interview 60 people back to back, having that initial getting to know you question, and probably by subject 10, I'd be like, okay, so what's your name? All right. What do you do? Okay, let's get this done. Okay, next. How do you keep it fresh?
I mean, that's a good question. How do you keep? I think the number one thing is empathy and kind of being aware of the person walking in front of you and trying to quickly pick up on their mood and quickly pick up on the cues that are happening just in between you guys from a nonverbal standpoint, and diving into. Listen, we're both going through crazy days. I'm going through crazy days. A crazy day. I'm photographing an insane amount of them. They're going through a crazy day where they're going from booth to booth to booth, place to place to place, getting asked the same questions over and over and over again. So the number one thing I start talking to them about is like, this is insane today, right? This is just crazy. and they can empathize with that because we're both like tired, and it's both. People are asking a lot of both of us throughout the day. So that's the first thing I empathize with. And then I just kind of, usually I do a lot of research with the people I photograph beforehand, but when it's this many people, you can't fill your brain with all the things that you want to in order to be able to get to a good conversation quickly. So I just kind of try to dive into topics that I think are going to quickly get, it's a lot of where do you live? Where are you from? Do you have kids? Stuff like that. Just so if I can quickly get into, okay, can we talk about this location that we both know? Can we talk about this family situation that we both know? Can we talk about this education level that we both are common with? Do I know anything about people that they know? Like, am I friends with any of their friends? I immediately show them work before I start photographing them, because I like to try to see if I can hit any people in my portfolio that they know that they're friends with. That helps. Because then they're like, oh, if Jesse photographed Tom Hanks and I know Tom, then he'll be fine. Oh, this will be great. And so there's a bunch of different tricks, but by the end, I'm tired. And especially if someone's walking through the door that I have no idea who they are, it's hard. I'm not going to lie. It's hard. But it's super fun. And you walk away from a shoot like that with friends, and you walk away with a shoot like that with amazing portraits of some really accomplished people.
I wonder if because me, I would consider myself a civilian in that world of shooting celebrities, and you're a general. So, I'm like, do you ever come across a celebrity that you're like, oh man, I'm a big fan of this person. I got to keep it together. Okay. F-stop, shutter speed, totally. ISO. I can do this, Yeah.
Totally.
Has that ever happened?
Absolutely. I mean, like, even when I'm photographing someone like in that shoot, Rob Lowe or Liv Tyler, those are people that have been in my life for decades before the day I met them. And, I'm a huge West Wing fan, like Sam Seaborn is a figure in my life. So I've got hours and hours and hours on Rob as far as how the relationship goes. I've got way more hours input into the relationship than he does. So that's difficult for sure. Not gonna lie, it's not hard. I mean, that it's not hard, but I've conditioned myself with these interactions. I've had so many of them, thousands probably at this point, with famous people. I don't ask questions that put me into the lane that is the fandom, fanboy lane. I just don't. I've never gone down that road, or certainly haven't gone down that road in the last decade. So I don't fall into the trap of, oh my God, I loved you in The West Wing. I don't fall into that line of question because I just don't ask people those questions. I ask them like, hey, like I heard that you have a couple kids that are at a house by now. Like, how's the journey? Because I'm just starting. I have a 2-year-old, and it's like, bam, now we're talking about that. Oh, you had boys. I have a boy. Like, okay, now we're talking about that. Fans don't talk to Rob Lowe about that stuff, so he doesn't treat me like a fan, even though I am one. And that is how I get past the fandom. Is I go, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to talk about the West Wing. I'm not going to tell Rob Lowe that I've spent about 100 hours of my life watching him on my TV screen. Like, it's just, where does that conversation go? So I learned not to ask the questions that get me in the position that you're talking about. And it's so important because, again, what I'm trying to get at is a genuine connection with someone. And one way to do that is to make them believe that you're being empathetic and that you're listening to them. And when you ask a celebrity a question that they get asked by everyone else all the time, they immediately get thrown into what I call a loop, where they go, okay, I'm being told that you love my work. Okay, this is what I do when that happens, because I know how to navigate these scenarios. And what does that look like? It doesn't, to me, look like an engagement in a photograph. So it would be antithetical to the goals I'm trying to accomplish for me to start getting into that fandom loop with the people that I'm photographing.
You gotta break that loop.
Break loops, man. And it's on my wall right back there. There's a poster that says break loops.
Yeah, I love that. And not have them put you in a bucket, because like, you're right. You and this is like in much of life, right? Once you say certain keywords to people, they automatically categorize you as this type of person. Like, okay, Jesse is a fan. All right, so I got to say this. He's going to ask for an autograph later, and this and that. Yeah. So you break that by instantly saying, "You're a human. I'm a human. I recognize that. I'm going to ask you human stuff and abstract that celebrity stuff out from the conversation." Yeah, that's cool.
You got it, man. Now you're a general. Now you know.
Hey, I'll be a colonel first. Let me be a colonel first. So we started the interview talking, I foreshadowed that, well, you're in Brooklyn and you're like in the heart of all this stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on over there, including all the Black Lives Matter protests and all that. One of the things I want to chat with you about, and we chatted about this briefly in our pre-interview, but the lack of diversity in crews, in photography crews, and you're in the middle of it. You're one of those photographers that other photographers around the nation and the world aspire to be, shooting celebrities, New York City, boom, 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 boom. Why is that? Why is there a lack of diversity in photography in general? I know, I'm like, you're the authority on it, but in photography in general, but specifically photography crews, the people that surround the CEO on a shoot. Why is it so undiverse?
It's a question, Frederick, that I really wish I had the answer to be honest. It has been something. Listen, I became a photo assistant in 2007. I did it was my career for 5 years. And then I've been a shooter since 2014. And the amount of Black men and people of color that even come through my door to try to apply to assist or be a digital tech or be at any part of the production process is just so low. It's pretty much non-existent. I try to make my team as diverse as possible. It's much easier for me to diversify from a gender perspective because I get a lot more women coming in and trying to be part of the team. I really wish I could figure out why that is. I have a sneaking suspicion that it's much larger than photography. I think it probably, this is me just guessing. And listen, I'm coming from a place where I don't have the answers to this, and I don't want to pretend like I do. And I also really hesitate talking about it from like a white knight perspective of like trying to, it's a very complicated subject. I wish I had more diversity on my team. I wish that there was more people coming and asking me to be part of my team that from more diverse backgrounds. I have a sense that if I had to guess, when I was in high school, I just thought I could work for Annie Leibovitz. I just thought it was like something that I could do. I just thought it was something that, like, why couldn't I work for Annie Leibovitz? It was a product of my socioeconomic upbringing. My parents I wasn't worried about like, making money to survive. I was thinking about, I can kind of do anything I want based on now knowing this is based on the privilege that I had growing up of being a straight white male with, upper middle class straight white male. I just was like, hey, yeah, sure, I'll just go work for Annie Leibovitz. And I have a feeling I have a feeling that the kind of the diversity that I'm looking for in my studio, I have a feeling that a lot of those people may not have those thoughts at the age of 17, 18, when I was getting ready to go assist people. I think that is probably the core of the problem. And I've thought about how to change that. I was talking to my friend recently about potentially trying to give lectures at art classes and art schools and colleges and schools up and down the line that have a significant population that are non-white, and trying to show people like, hey, this is possible. And to say like, people like me are looking for people like you to be a part of my team. But I'm really searching for other ideas and other solutions and trying to be part of the solution as far as, because, you talk about, I think it's something like 80% of the industry is white. And part of that is because the pipeline of becoming a photographer, one of the main pipelines of becoming a photographer is going through the production process and being some level of assistant, whether that's a digital tech or a lighting assistant or a stylist, or a production assistant. And so there's no wonder that, the pipeline is not super diverse and therefore the people on top are not super diverse. It makes complete sense. And so there's a lot of really great Black photographers out there. I've been trying to amplify some of those voices recently, and trying to, let people know about the ones that I've come across. But, I'm definitely looking for more assisting and more people to be in my studio, to help. I like to say, like, I've got the white guy corner perspective covered. I got that. I know what it's like to be a tall white dude who grew up in Connecticut and didn't have to worry about anything. I don't need more of those people giving me their perspective. I want more people in my studio who can help me come up with ideas and look at my goal, it's just so simple, Frederick. Like, my goal as a portrait photographer is to empathize and to have a connection with all of the people that I photograph and to have that be genuine. And having a more diverse skill set and a more diverse background in my studio of the people that are helping accomplish who are helping accomplish those pictures, will do nothing but help them make them better. So, there's a call out there from me. Like I want more diversity in my studio, and I need more applicants in order to make that happen, because they just don't walk through the door.
We'll link to, how people can contact you in the blog post and the YouTube video. I think you hit it right on the head, though. The part of the issue, and it, like you said, it's a multi-layered, complex issue that, we're not gonna solve it obviously on a podcast or a YouTube video, but the part of it is, and when I say it, I mean the lack of diversity and why aren't Black folks or people of color trickling into your office to apply and all that. I think a lot of it might just be, why should I waste my time? I don't, that I'm going to bark up the wrong tree is going to end sadly. Yeah. Why should I even go over there? It's not even worth it. I'm going to go over here where I know I have a better chance of succeeding or making a dent or whatever. So, and besides, I know people that went in that direction and have enjoyed some degree of success. Why should I go over there? There's so few of us over there anyway. Why should I even do that? So I think you perfect what you said about like speaking and going to areas where there are Black people and people of color that, and speaking to them and saying, hey, it is possible. Come work, over here, get your feet wet. That's how you sort of start putting cracks in that glass wall of I can't go over there and do that. But on the other side of that, that's the glasses half full side. On the other side of that, there are lots of people that aren't like you that are going to put up those roadblocks still, that people of color, Black people and people of color have to have the wherewithal to like, okay, that was a dead end. I'm going to go to the left a little bit and try over there. Right. Because, it still exists. It's not going to go away because of a protest. It's going to be here for, a while longer, but we're making progress. So it's, that was a loaded question for you. So, how do you solve
and I
this,
feel I also feel like, and I don't have the answers to this, but I was thinking about it today, that it's also obviously it's a hot word right now, but it's more systemic than just people individually feeling like they can potentially succeed here. I think that, I was just taking it for granted. I was listening to something before, like I had traveled the world extensively. I had been traveling in New York City all around extensively before I even walked into my first assistant job. Like I had the situational awareness of walking and being in some of the circles that I was being put in. I just hadn't done it with photo equipment. And so, I think that that's also something that someone like me now has to be like. I can't exclude people and discount people's ability to be part of my team just because haven't had the same, experiences and they're not up to the same speed as far as, the intensity of travel and the intensity of just doing some of the things that you need to do that have nothing to do with photography. And I feel like that's something that also needs to change from hiring from people like people in my situation, hiring perspective, to say like, hey, we're not only educating people who come into this environment about photography, we're also educating them about, what goes behind making the pictures, all the insane travel, the networking that's involved, like more than half of my job is going on meetings and traveling. I mean, I travel to like 15, 20 cities a year and go on hundreds of hours of meetings every year. If you're a kid that's coming in my door that's never been out of New York City, like that's gotta be like, just kind of brain altering as far as how one would even accomplish that. So, I've been thinking a lot about stuff like that as well. And you're right. And then the first step is hopefully making people believe from an inward perspective, hey, there's an opportunity for me there. And I think the second step is for people on my side of the coin saying, I need to expand my horizons as far as when people walk in the door, that having a different perspective, like I was saying before, is just as valuable as having the experience of a lot of the things that I took for granted,
it's art, right? In the end, it's art.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's like, one of the things that I think about with all this stuff is, the pluses and minuses, or if there is a plus to a pandemic, one of the pluses of this socially distanced and quarantine world, which will probably last for the foreseeable future in some way or another. Like you said, in the olden days, let's call it last year, right? The olden days, it was, Jesse's traveling all the time. Jesse's running around New York City, taking meetings and pounding the pavement. Yeah. Not so much now, right?
Those skill sets might be less valuable now.
Right. But a lot of it, in terms of leveling the waters, now a lot of it's happening over Zoom or Skype or something like that, which means, there's a more opportunity because you can do a Zoom or a Skype meeting from a tablet, a computer, or a phone or something. Now you can, that part of it, somewhat, can be off shifted to virtual versus, I need to, that seems unsurmountable for me to be traveling to Milan and then LA and then to Munich for a shoot, you can go there for the shoot, but the initial meetings might be virtual, right? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, totally. I'm having my first virtual meeting this week, my first virtual portfolio meeting this week. So I'm on it, man. It's happening. And I'm really interested to see how it goes. It's going to be big. It's with a big advertising agency. I'm kind of excited to see how that goes because it might cut down on my airline bills quite a bit. But you're right. It's the virtual meetings are going to happen 100%. They're going to happen. They're here.
Yeah, they're here, which means, there could also be an opportunity for, like you mentioned, speaking at areas where people of color congregate. Maybe it's virtual, right? And do a virtual thing right there and just bring a bunch of people and say, hey, it's not outside the realm of reality that you could be in this world, too, especially now, and then reach many people, versus just, 100 or so that would be in the room there. So,
absolutely.
It's cool, man. We got lots of stuff to do. So, thank you for being so candid about that.
So much work to be done on this front. So much work.
It is. There's a lot to be done, but it's really encouraging from both a photographer side, a content creator side, and first and foremost, African American male side to see the progress that is going on, and the logs being turned over, at least so we can see the bugs underneath, so that we can kill them.
Yeah, and we need more Black photographers now than ever to be covering these protests from their point of view. I think that their work has a different level of engagement and understanding of what's going on, and I'm personally seeking out those voices because those are the ones that matter right now. And it's disappointing that they're so few and far between compared to industry at large.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Jesse, thank you so much for coming on, man. What if people want to follow you, and just check out your work, or if they want to, maybe throw their hat in the ring to maybe work with you somehow, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Yeah, so if you want to follow my work, the best way, the thing I update the most is my Instagram. It's just my name, Jesse Dittmar. The best way to contact me is through my email. I do not have it on my website right now because I only have my agent, my representations contact my website. But you can always email my agent. But if you want to email me directly, I'll hand out my email on this podcast right now. It's my initials at my name, jd@jessedittmar.com. Like I said, I am always looking for good people to come and work for me. I'm always looking for smart, high-quality individuals, and I would love for those people to be more diverse than the ones that walk through my door right now. So, if you think you qualify under any of those circumstances, you shoot me an email, you tell me why, and you'll hear from me.
Awesome. All right. Jesse Dittmar, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you. I'm awed by your work, the work ethic, obviously, and your just worldview. It's refreshing. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right.
This is Twit.